The SVSTA will help sex workers, survivors of trafficking, massage workers, and all those profiled. Thank you again for joining our press conference today. Now it's time to engage with elected officials and demand support for the Stop Violence in the Sex Trade Act now.
So for me, it takes a little bit of a different note to be here. These are my neighbors. These are the people who deserve the right to decide how they want to live. Yep. Without having the police criminalize how they make that decision. For me, it is that simple. It's not about morality. It's not about anything other than, if this is what you want to do, why are we criminalizing it? If this is what you want to do, we as legislators should be fighting for your right to do it. Simple. And the fact that we even have to have these conversations, that we have to make arguments to people who would never begin to understand why you make the decision that you did, because that's your decision and yours only to make. And that understanding, and as I just mentioned, we have been doing work to protect victims of sex trafficking for decades. And people want to argue that decriminalizing sex work is actually going to make it worse. Well, take it from the people who do it every day. Take it from the people who are investigating it. Take it from those of us who are out there fighting to make sure that you are protected, but that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that you are going to, for once in your life, have the right to do whatever you want to do.
My name is Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. I represent Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside, and I use she, her, ella pronouns. You know, I represent this community. When I ran for office, I said I would run for all people, for all community members. And that includes my neighbors in the sex trade. And it's also an extension of my work prior to the assembly, fighting for bodily autonomy and reproductive justice. This is the same fight. We have seen attack after attack on our bodily autonomy, including the overturning of Roe, court cases against contraception, and anti-trans legislation. I say enough is enough. Enough. The government should not be dictating what New Yorkers do with their bodies consensually. And if sex work is how you pay your bills, how you feed your families, and how you survive, well, we should be making it safer and not more dangerous for you to do so. And I say this as the chair of the subcommittee on human trafficking. I will also note that it's crucial to reduce police presence if we expect sex workers to feel safe in order to report human trafficking if it's occurring. Now, others will tell you that the only way to do so is by criminalizing people who purchase sex, but there's the thing here. Criminalization of any kind is violence.
That's right. That's right.
Criminalization of any kind is violence. So, if we are committed to anti-violence, so I join advocates, you all, thank you so much for being here. I have some courageous, ferocious advocates and colleagues in the Assembly and Senate as well that are calling to pass the Stop Violence in the Sex Trades Act, which will decriminalize sex work for people who trade it and for those who purchase it, and allow for the sealing of prior convictions for sex work-related offense. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for telling your stories. Thank you for marching up and down the hallways of this building to ensure that your voices are included in this fight. So I'm here with you all the way.
I am the executive director of the New Pride Agenda, and I'm also a formerly incarcerated former sex worker. I am here in our state's capital today with my community to tell our elected officials that sex workers deserve human rights and protections just like anybody else.
That's right. That's right.
That what we do with our own bodies is our business and not the business of the government. Let me be clear. We are not advocating to legalize sex work, as some have stated here in Albany. Nor are we asking to decriminalize sex trafficking, as some have stated here in Albany. We are here today to rally to stop violence in the Sex Trades Act, an act that decriminalizes consensual sex work between adults, yet upholds existing laws that involves economically exploiting people in the sex trades, especially minors.
Yes.
There is no credible data that suggests that decriminalizing sex work will lead to increased trafficking. None whatsoever. We are here because we know that comprehensive decriminalization is the best way to reduce coercion in the sex trades, while also reducing police violence. So to those that are pushing a bogus so-called equality model, let me say there is nothing equal about it. You will not take the food out of our mouths. You will not put us in an unequal footing when it comes to negotiating our boundaries with our clients. And we will not allow a prohibitionist model that leads to criminalization of sex workers that live and work together for their own safety to pass this legislature. Not on our watch. We will not allow you to exploit survivors of trafficking to paint your narrative. And make no mistake, sex work will never cease to exist. It is a form of survival for so many of us, including black and brown trans women. And I just want to say, clients are not pimps. Clients do not drive demand. Poverty drives demand.
That's right.
Income inequality drives demand. Lack of economic opportunity drives demand. Transphobia drives demand.
That's right.
Sexism drives demand. This industry will not go away, so we must do what we can to ensure everyone's safety and bodily autonomy. So to the well-funded organizations pushing prohibitionist models of decriminalization, we see you, and we are not going down without a fight. We will make New York the first state to fully decriminalize consensual sex work. And I just want to close by saying this. Where all the progressive elected officials, one elected official had the integrity to come here and stand with us today, shoulder to shoulder in solidarity. All of you have trans flags on your desks in the chamber. I want you to remove them from your desks after today because you do not support trans rights.
Reckonery Song is a grassroots collective of Asian and migrant sex workers, massage workers, and allies based out of Flushing. We were founded in 2018 at the one-year anniversary of the death of Yang Song, a 38-year-old massage worker who fell to her death during an NYPD raid at her place of work because someone called and said there was prostitution happening. Decriminalizing sex work, and on top of that the harsh massage licensing penalties after prostitution arrest, is a critical tool in the toolbox to make sure workers are safer. Decriminalizing consensual adult sex work will mean real equity for migrants, sex workers, and trafficking survivors alike. This is what a massage worker said about the police raids that have been happening. I know 2 elder workers who jumped from the second floor window during police raids. One worker broke her ankles and still limps when she walks. The other almost died from the accident and still has an enormous surgery scar all over her back. It's long overdue to decriminalize sex work in New York. Thank you.
My name is Abby. I am an attorney at the Legal Aid Society and the Exploitation Intervention Project. I'm here with my colleague, Brian Wall. And for the past 10 years, we've represented sex workers and trafficking survivors in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And we know that SVSTA protects sex workers and trafficking victims. New York must pass SVSTA now. SVSTA is the only law that protects agency and bodily autonomy and restores dignity while preventing violence. Importantly, the SVSTA would allow those with criminal convictions for laws that are now going to be repealed to have those convictions automatically removed from their criminal records. This would allow more New Yorkers to live their lives without the stigma of a criminal record, without the consequences of a criminal record in housing, in family court, and it would add to the economic growth of our city. For too long, we have heard stories from sex workers and trafficking victims alike about the abuse that they have suffered at the hands of the NYPD. SVSTA is one small step that we can take to put the NYPD back where they belong, outside of our bodies. Thank you.
Come to find out that your date is a cop. And then come to find out that he doesn't believe that consent can be taken back at any given moment. And to be told that what you're going to do about it. Things like that could be stopped very easily if people listen to the select population that has something to say. We've been saying this for decades. This is nothing new. When is someone going to listen? It's the oldest profession in the world. Yet it's one of the most ruthless and talked down upon. But all that said, you don't listen to the people who are providing said services. Clearly it's the oldest profession for a reason. Listen, we have something to say. Stop hurting us, stop killing us. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Denise, and I am a leader of the Trans Immigrant Project in Main Road, New York. I am proudly an immigrant, trans Latina woman, and a sex worker. I have lived in New York City for over 12 years, and for many of those years, I have been a sex worker. I have had different jobs, but being in the sex work industry has allowed me to survive and pay for my bills. Today, I am here to demand that the Stop Violence in the Sex Trades Act passes now. It is time to decriminalize the selling and purchasing of sexual services and stop the constant abuses that we face from the police. Many of us continue to be persecuted, facing violence, and being imprisoned by the police for doing decent work, a job like any others that allows us to put a hot plate of food in our table. A few years ago, I had an experience with a retired detective who made me do demeaning things. He threatened me with his weapon and told me that if I did what he asked me to do, he will not take me to the police. I was forced to say yes, and I did what he told me to do. Because as an immigrant person, I knew that an arrest could bring immigration consequences that can cause deportation. And a deportation can cost my life. I do not want to be a part of the long list of cases of people that have been killed by the police or as a result of a deportation. And I am here to remember my trans sisters and sex workers whose life has been taken away from us. Repeat after me. Melissa Núñez. Melissa Núñez. Melissa Núñez. Melissa Núñez. Melissa Núñez. Melissa Núñez. We remember her as a warrior, and it is on her memory, and for those of us who are still alive, that we demand to live without fear. We demand that sex work is decriminalized now. We demand to be free and to be able to work with the dignity like any other industry in this state. It is time to pass Stop Violence in the Sex Trades Act now. Sex work is work! Sex work is work! Sex
Yeah.
That's right!
And by full decriminalization, we mean the decriminalization of selling and purchasing of sexual service for consenting adults. Our decrim model is one that protects sex workers, survivors of trafficking, and immigrant communities. Our bill, Stop Violence in the Sex Trade Act, still upholds the law that criminalizes people who physically assault and economically exploit people in the sex trades, especially minors. Amnesty International, the World Health Organization, UNAIDS, and more than 250 scientists recognize that comprehensive decrim is the best way to reduce coercion in the sex trade, while also reducing STI transmission, reducing police violence, and enabling sex workers to employ harm reduction and safety tools. This is because comprehensive decriminalization enables sex workers to screen clients, negotiate condom use, and work collaboratively without the fear of criminalization. It also enables sex workers to seek medical or legal help without fear of economic consequences or legal repercussions. Woo!